Hi everyone. Okay, so this is another video that we have created, but it's a little bit special today. It's a way of sharing it with my fellow best friend in Barcelona. Some of you may know her. She's called Sophie Anderson. She is also an upper cervical chiropractor. And we've come together today just to do like an informal chat about some of the really frequent questions that we both find our clients ask us over time. We have really similar way of practicing, so we thought this might utilize this time perfectly to just blast through a few questions that people may be interested in and just have a real discussion about it. So I'm going to hand it over to you. So this might get confusing because also we have the same name and we're both chiropractors, but we are not the same people. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Soph, to just kind of introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about your practice, where you are, and how you've kind of got to that point as well.
Okay, amazing. So, as Sophie said, I'm also Sophie, and my practice is in Barcelona, and I've been here now my practice has been there for 3 years. And I used to be a full spine chiropractor in the past, just like Soph did, and I changed and specialized over to upper cervical about 4 years ago now. And that was mainly based around two things that I personally was experiencing: a lot of health issues, headache, migraine, upper back pain, low back pain, in fact, and sciatica sometimes. And I was constantly, having my full spine care, taking care of myself in the way that we've been trained, taking care of my nervous system, and was still having those symptoms and getting quite frustrated. And the second thing was I was taking care of a lot of people all over the UK at different chiropractic practices as a locum. And I kept seeing the same patterns showing up in a lot of other people. And just through the time I was traveling to lots of different countries to hang out with other chiros, and I found that they kept talking about this upper cervical thing. So when I looked into it, I was like, this makes so much sense. And we'll talk about why that is in a minute. But it just made so much sense from a neurological, biological, physiological, all of those ways. And I was like, wow, why have I never heard of this properly before? And that's because in the schools that we were taught in the UK, they didn't really put much attention onto that upper cervical side of things. So then once I dived into it, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this for myself and I want to do this for my people. And that's really where everything changed for my health, my headaches, my migraines, myself, and also through dedicating this kind of practice, doing this kind of practice for my people as well. I've seen some amazing changes with people who otherwise might have struggled to get results with a different approach. What about you, Soph?
Yeah, I think we kind of had like a bit of a similar journey. I think, I can't even remember when it was, maybe 2015 maybe. I think you recommended I read this book, and it was like one of the really old kind of original philosophical books, and it's part of the green books. And I remember you suggesting that I should read it because we used to ask each other quite a lot of questions all the time, like, what do you think about this and this? And after I read that book, it just switched on so many light bulb moments for me, and also answered so many questions. And then I remember us doing our first upper cervical seminar together in Spain. And I just felt like my main questions were, why was I doing what I was doing? How specific was I actually being? And how could I measure how well these people were changing and their healing, being my clients? And I think when I did my first upper cervical seminar, it answered all of those questions, and I was like, okay, this is the route that I want to go through. And even though it took us quite a long time, it's not like an easy road where you just go to a seminar and then you're an amazing upper cervical chiropractor. It's like a real kind of long, hard road. But I'm so glad I did do it, and how it's evolved over time, because I get so much more satisfaction now in my work and how I take care of people. And like you say, like the results are different. It is more profound changes that I have noticed with people, and how reproducible it is as well. And there's just so many parts of it that I absolutely love. And we've talked before about how sometimes it can be really grey, and when we thought it was just going to be black and white and really simple, like nothing ever is, but we always get lured into that sort of dreamy scenario. So yeah, I think that transition took a while, but definitely feel more certain where I am now. But I think what we said before is that there's kind of three main questions that have come up quite a few times for us, mainly because we do practice in a slightly different way. It's not like, what people are really used to. Not many people know much about chiropractic, let alone this kind of sort of off branch being upper cervical chiropractic. So we kind of wanted to run through and record today these three main themes that have come up. So Soph, I will shoot to you the first one. Kind of really a simple one is why we predominantly focus on the top of the spine. So if you could explain a bit more about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. So the easiest way I find to explain this is a really short, small story, and that's thinking about in our homes. So if we were to go home tonight, it was dark, we turn on all of the lights and it stays pitch black, we know there's a problem in the house. And normally the first place we go and check is the fuse box, right? We go to that fuse box, we find that something's turned off, we turn that back on, and then typically everything's working, or maybe we have to go and change a light bulb. Now, we have a fuse box in our bodies as well, and that's what's called the brain stem. So the brain stem is situated in this top area of our neck. It's just underneath the skull, underneath the top two bones of the neck. And that brain stem is literally the fuse box of our bodies. So if there's something, if we say switched off in our brain stem, that could be affecting the connection to the stomach or the leg or the lungs or literally any part of us or several parts of us at the same time. So this is why even when someone comes to us and then perhaps suffering something in their, let's say their low back, which is a really common thing, or in the leg problem, they can often be confused, like, why would we be checking the top of the neck? And the reason being is that we want to make sure that that fuse box has every single switch switched on, including the switches to the low back, so that that low back area can have the full connection from the brain, from the nervous system, so it can do the healing and the repairing that it's designed to do, because that's the key part of this, that our bodies are built to heal, and they will heal themselves as long as the brain and body are fully connected. And the key to that is that fuse box, making sure that everything's switched on and connected to all parts of the body. So then I think the next thing that this leads us into is, in our offices, we use this highly advanced piece of technology, computerized infrared thermography, or just the scanner as we call it. And a lot of people are like, well, what is that and why do we use it? So perhaps, Sophie, you could go into explaining that one.
Yeah, sure. And I think sometimes it looks quite simple because they just look like lines, and usually we're looking at three lines. But I always say to my clients, these may look like squiggly lines or straight lines, but they mean so much to us. And basically we use the scanner to interpret your physiology, but how well your nervous system is functioning. We always will scan before we decide what to do, whether that person needs to be adjusted or not. If the scan and the information provided says, yes, they do need to be adjusted, that's how we interpret it. After they've had their adjustment and their rest time, we also scan afterwards, which is kind of my favorite real part of the work that we do, because it has like a tangible measurement, because we really don't know how well our body is functioning, because we cannot just measure that based on how we feel. But when we have a piece of technology that is so highly efficient that we can use that to measure how well your nervous system is working on every single visit, we can also then start to track people's healing, people's patterns, and it gives us so much information. Kind of more detailed is it's really measuring how our skin temperature is reading. Our skin temperature is controlled by those nerves that come out of the spinal cord right underneath where the skin is perfused with blood, and how those nerves are controlling that skin temperature. And all of our research has showed that no 2 points right next to each other, either side of the spine here, should be more than 0.5 degrees in difference of temperature from right to left, and then the whole rest of the spine. when it is more than 0.5 degrees difference, that shows neuropathophysiology, which is just a really fancy word for showing your nervous system is not working as optimally as possible. And just like Soph said before, we predominantly will scan from the base of your neck right to the top, because that's where most of our information of our nervous system is existing, just like you said. But we also do the full spine scans on regular intervals, especially at the beginning, because that will still give us so much information on how your autonomic nervous system is performing. But every single time on a regular visit, we just predominantly scan in that cervical region. Would you add anything to
that? No, I think you've explained it really well. I think the key things are just that we use that as a baseline at the beginning through the full spine scans, and then every single visit, like you said, because that's allowing us, like you said, with the progress. But the important part of that is to share as well that often with this work, because the healing's happening internally and the body's doing that work, that can take time, and so we don't always feel the effects of that immediately, whereas the scan that we use is actually showing to us and proving to us it is changing, it is improving, you are on the right track. So it allows us to know as the chiropractor, great, we're doing the right thing, or do we need to course correct? And it also allows our clients to know, okay, I am changing, I am, something is happening, and even though I might not feel that just yet, I am going to.
Yeah.
So it's a really great reassurance for us and our clients that we are working in the right direction.
Yeah, I also,
and then I wonder,
sorry, go ahead. No, it was just, I was going to say, I also think that it's quite empowering for people as well, that, you may come in with like a raging migraine or really acute low back pain and assume that your body's not working properly and it's broken, it needs fixing. But actually, quite a lot of the time, when we actually can scan and measure that, actually, no, your nervous system is performing really optimally, your body is on the job, it's healing, it's repairing, and you just need a little bit more rest time, or to not have those aggravating behaviors that might be causing that. But it's not necessarily that your body's broken and needs to be adjusted, but we would never know that if we didn't use the scan. So that's one of my favorite parts of them.
Yeah, amazing. Me too. And then I think that leads perfectly into the last question that we get asked a lot, which is about the resting part, right? Because you've just mentioned that maybe you need to rest more, and that can, a lot of people assume that that's at home, but we also have the resting part in the office.
Yeah.
And that's one of my other, all the parts are my favorite parts, but that's one of my other favorite things. And everyone that comes in loves it too. And most of them fall asleep, but and the reason that it's such a unique thing to what we do in our offices as upper cervical chiropractors, but it's so important and it makes such a big difference, because the idea that we make that correction, we make that adjustment, that person goes and does that 15-20 minute rest, that's the time that gives their body to really incorporate, to assimilate, to use that adjustment, to do the work, to start making a change. And then when they come back, we can do the scan again and compare the before and after, so we know what's happening. But more so than that, it's the idea that we know that each client coming in when they're having these symptoms, and we found out that their nervous system is at the root of it, the pattern that their nervous system currently is in is one that's not functioning, it's not working optimally. We want to stop that and create a new way of being, a new pattern. And so it makes perfect sense that you can't just have an adjustment, get up off the table, leave, and go back to your life, back to your office desk, back to the car, back to running around and being a busy mum, looking after the kids, whatever it is, because those are often the things that have contributed to that stress, that have created that adaptation that your body's made, because it's trying to cope with all of that stuff. So why put you straight back into that? Whereas when you get that opportunity to just be completely still, the nervous system, the stress response calms down, that adjustment, you get rebalancing quicker, you get healing quicker, and also it just feels so nice. Like that's like the the last part of it. And so I love that we can give our people that, because the combination of that specific adjustment when it's really needed and the rest makes this winning combination of having changes quicker, of breaking that pattern quicker, of allowing that nervous system to rebalance quicker.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's great that we have time to then compare a before and after scan to actually see, okay, great, your nervous system is doing exactly what it's designed to do, following that adjustment, it's starting to rebalance itself. We can measure that, we can see it on the scan. We know that we can send you home, your body's on the job, your nervous system's on the job, and we can let that be. We don't need to interfere more, because the body really is the doctor. You know, the miracles are happening inside each one of us.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also to add to that is that the resting part really, my understanding, helps with how well you can and long you can hold your adjustment for, because it is not ideal if, you know, say every single day or every week or however the duration is, that you're getting adjusted every single time. You know, we want your adjustment to hold for as long as possible. And I think with that time of resting in the either the anti-gravity or the reclined position in the resting chairs really helps with that maximizing, you know, the ability to hold the adjustment as long as possible, rather than, like you say, darting out into the busy world, all that stimulation, especially seeing both of our practices are in the city. I think just having that, you know, period and that window of time to switch it off in that really like dim light, either you're listening to the meditation or doing some breathing, and just have that kind of low stimulation, really helps with the nervous system to be able to shift and change that pattern as well, like you said.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
perfect.
I think that's the end of our questions, but I'm going to post this on YouTube, and we can share it within you know, our email circle. But, you know, if anyone has any further questions or things that they want to get more information on, then obviously you can email myself or Sophie anytime, and I'll attach both of our details. But thanks for your time today, Soph.
Yeah, you too, and have a good weekend in another weekend in quarantine.
All right, then.
All right.